It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays. And we're talking about internalizing things. And this comes out of that whole man-spreading thing and people getting upset in terms and all that stuff. And this difference between, there was this old Chris Rock stand-up about women who dance to, misogynist hip-hop lyrics. And horrible lyrics about women and they're dancing and he ain't talking about me. And there's that group of people. And then there's the people who automatically take personally things that aren't. And then there's the majority of people that some things are just really personal to them. Other things aren't. And sometimes it can come down to you're at low ebb that day. Or, there are particular things that just irritate. People deliberately being disrespectful irritates me. I have gotten a lot better at not showing it, but I just think it's cheap. It's craven behavior, and I don't like it. But that doesn't hurt me. Right? Other things really wound people. The freaking out over TV shows and terms and manspreading and this and that. It's an indication of low resilience because too much is getting internalized, right? The filters haven't developed that allow you to be more resilient. And Counselor Scout is here, right? Right, Scouty? Yeah. All right, if you like this stuff, cattails and all, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K. Help me out. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. 6 people now are the weekly goal for subsidized services. Okay, so you can know somebody's trying to be a jerk. Or somebody can say something that hits you the wrong way that isn't intentional. There's a difference between, that wasn't cool, and you get on with your day, and then falling apart about it. And the difference is what messages we've internalized about our parts, our place in the world. And I say this a lot, but I'm going to say it again. The world has no feelings. The world does not care about you. It does not hate you, right? It's not about the world when you are feeling these things. It is your immediate social environment. If your social environment is such that when you see something in media, and instead of turning off the TV or, not seeing those movies anymore or, doing something to not engage with the content that's bothering you or engage with the content at a level that you find more enjoyable, that's because the boundaries aren't there, right? And so too much negativity gets internalized. And so you've got this script constantly running in your head. One client calls it the me bad, me bad. And everything is filtered through that lens. So if you've got a running internal monologue telling yourself you're garbage, or that the world thinks you're crap, or that the world is against men, or all that stuff, everything's going to hit you harder that, through that filter, right? Any comment about men that even if it's just a subsection of men or one particular man, it's going to hit that button because that button is freaking huge. It's really hard not to hit the button, right? It's that big freaking giant, like from soft boss with the big, it's this giant AOE instead of something that's easier to dodge or block, right? Because your brain has determined that that's a relevant threat, as opposed to something that is irritating, you wish they hadn't done it, but not really harmful to you. And I honestly think that the reason some people are so jumpy is that they don't have people around them that they can trust. Because you have people around you that you can trust, and somebody says something awful about you, they're not going to immediately believe it, right? They're going to be, that's not the person I know. And sometimes people change, and that's not your fault. But, you know, having that core of 2 or 3 people that you know have your back, that makes a huge difference when it comes to parsing the messages you get on a daily basis. The thing is that a lot of the messaging from activist groups, politicians, you know, various sources, it's propaganda, right? And propaganda is designed to hijack the intellect, to sidestep rationality, and just get you in the icks, right? Those unpleasant emotions, fear, anger, you know, the stuff that triggers fight or flight. Do something, right? Because those are the most likely to override any logical process. And if you don't control what you consume, then you're inundated with this. You know, it's gotten to the point where I can tell what websites someone frequents based on their language, right? Or what hashtags they follow, or what things they probably believe because, you know, captured a group, you know, they're captured, political capture. That, you never heard that until like a year or 2 ago. And now you're seeing it everywhere. That doesn't just happen. Language doesn't evolve that quickly organically. You know, safeguarding. Oh, I'm so sick of the word safeguarding. When people start talking about safeguarding, they're either basically anti-trans or responding to someone anti-trans most of the time. And it's a perfectly good word, right? It's just now, oh, yellow flag on the play, right? It's not a red flag, it's yellow. Because the problem with this stuff, this is the problem with dog whistles, that they are innocuous words out of context. And I can understand why after, God, too many years of this crap. I mean, we've been battling this one way or another since at least 2012. People are fucking tired. And I can understand why nerves are raw. And then you get into this required viewing, like water cooler shows. And I'm getting so freaking sick of that. Like, if a show isn't trending on Twitter, then it's seen as not relevant. And only 18% of the population is on Twitter, right? If you look at the ratings of a standard network show like Special Victim Unit or Blue Bloods or something like that. I like Blue Bloods, full disclosure. But if you look at one of those shows, numbers for something like House of the Dragon or, you know, anything on premium cable, Better Call Saul, anything like that, the ones that get a lot of chatter, even the Disney Plus stuff, those numbers are tiny compared to something like Blue Bloods. Orders of magnitude more. But, relevance, the discourse, it's easy to feel inundated, and it's easy to get a skewed perspective of what really matters and what really is a threat with this going on, especially during and post-COVID, where I was really angered by the fear tactics a lot of media were using. There was too much speculative reporting. And yes, you know, public health officials did make some mistakes. It happens in everything, right? Because everything's moving so quickly. So they give recommendations that then change. But there were only 2 or 3 major pivots that way. But if you read the news every day, like a lot of people were, and they saw all these speculative headlines, it's really easy for the speculation to run into what the public health officials were actually saying. And then you have the whole, politicized stuff as well. That is a cat. That's not a sweater. Hi, Scout. Basically, our amygdalas are overworked and more is getting through than normal. And so my recommendation is this: if you find yourself frequently wounded by this kind of stuff, it is very important to talk to people so you feel like you can exist in a valid place. The reason this stuff hits so hard is it's invalidating. And we only have so many, it's like a health bar, right? We can take a certain amount of invalidation as long as there's places we can go to get validated honestly, right? Not validated for bad behavior, validated by people who know us, that like us as people, not just what we can produce or consume, right? And everybody needs that. And if you don't have it, you're constantly depleted on a soul level, right? And you need places to go and things to do that fill you back up again. And these are not wastes of time. This is the big issue with the demonization of leisure activities, the putting hustle on a pedestal. I'm living proof. You can have too much hustle. You can exhaust yourself and be working at 40% capacity if you don't back off sometimes. And soul food, right? I have been much better about that in the last few months, and especially 2023 kind of thing. When I finally got that break at Christmas, realized how completely worn out I was. And I'm like, not going back. So I've slowed down. I'm not working as many hours as I was, but I'm getting just as much done because I'm more productive. So if TV shows are wounding you, if a tweet knocks you off for the whole day, and that on the regular, every so often we see something that's disturbing. I cannot stand the graphic violence that gets stumbled upon on Twitter. I don't care what anybody says. Real life violence does not hit the same part of my brain as stuff in video games or on TV. It is ugly, except Cronenberg films, because Cronenberg goes out of his way to make the violence realistic instead of, glamorized. It's not the same. A real fight is ugly and jarring as opposed to what you see in movies and stuff like that. A martial arts film is not, a video of a bunch of high schoolers beating up on each other in a cafeteria because reasons. So on and so forth. And I really wish people weren't considerate about that. Companies have got to get better at enforcing that stuff, because that is disturbing. Something like that can really rattle you. And that's human. We're supposed to do that. But not liking a TV show, or being more than offended because something is offensive. Guys, if you're younger, TV in the 80s and the 90s would have turned you white. Like, especially the 90s with the backlash to the first political correctness period. They were deliberately tweaking people. They were going out of their way to do stuff just because why not? It was a lot of challenging of the status quo. And I did that sort of comedy. You go over the line. Sometimes you do, because the line is constantly moving, very subjective, and there's a lot of elements to it. And so we all have jokes that don't land properly or came across as way more offensive than we intended. That doesn't make the comedians who said it bad people. It just happens. And I wish people understood that about comedy more. Because, you know, when a comedian does it again and again and again and again and again, that's one thing. But, you know, people who get defined by one bad joke, it's happened as long as there's been entertainment, but it's never fair. But the thing, it used to be, right? You chose to watch a show. You chose to go to a comedy club, right? Except that one time when I was like a teenager and a comedian called me from the stage, went on my ex-boyfriend's cell phone like 2 weeks after the guy dumped me. That was awesome. Yeah, that's what were you thinking? But of course, you know, the comedy club expected me to just accept that the comedian felt bad. Did the comedian himself never apologize to me? No, that's bad business, right? That dick move. But most mass media is recorded for a specific audience. They don't always get it right? We're just, especially in gaming, because games can patch things, right? Even the thing with the Starbucks coffee cup in that last episode of Game of Thrones, the fact they went back, put it in. I kind of wish they'd left it in, but I get why they didn't. It was actually a mistake. But with everything being digital, this feedback, the idea that if you scream loud enough, something will change. You'll be able to take up space. You matter. You'll be validated. The few times that's actually worked stay in people's minds more than the dozens and dozens and dozens of times that it doesn't. And so they get so invested in trying to scream the absolute loudest and be the most upset so that these people on, you know, the Mount Olympus of media will hear the cries of the peons below and throw them a bone. And that's just, you know, I sit back and look at that and go, that's where we're at. Holy shit. And that's not a criticism of anybody. That's a sign of complete breakdown of community, right? You don't need to do that if you have people around you. Now, I know I have constantly talked about the crosses in synagogues in Last of Us 2. Now, part of the reason that stuck in my craw is because everybody was like, this is such an inclusive, diverse game, and they did that. I don't like bullshit. But did I terribly care if they patched it? No, that was just me having an opinion, right? The fact that I got caught up in what was probably Russian Twitter activity over that was wild. But there's an example of, I have a comment. I say, this isn't cool. But do I go, Naughty Dog hates Jews? No. Because, the person who created those assets was probably just given a building. They may not know enough about synagogues. A lot of people have never been in a synagogue. There are some people who call it Jew church, and they were probably like, this is the building I've been given. All right. And they just duplicated it. They did their job. It was a procedural mistake. Now, Neil Druckmann should have known better because he's got Jewish ancestry, but narcissism, right? It's not going to ruin my life. They did patch it, but, it's not going to ruin me. I don't fall apart when someone calls me a bigot. I don't fall apart when J.K. Rowling calls me a pedo apologist, Though that one pissed me off because, you know, it's not true. And I think the vast majority of people who said it was not true. And that was less about me and more about the fact they're trivializing child abuse. That's disgusting. But disgusting people exist. Being able to be bothered by things without getting consumed by it and feeling secure in the fact that you have the right to take up space on the planet. These are not things we're born with. They're things, if we have a loving, supportive environment growing up, right up until our mid to late 20s, we develop it, we learn it, we're taught it. But if we're not taught it, we can't learn it. The good thing is you can still learn. Now, I can't give specific tips because this is complicated stuff. It's multifaceted and it all depends on where the deficits are, you know, which is why I do one-on-one stuff and group stuff. We gotta get back on the bubbles again. It's just been people are still tapped out from Christmas to just an organizational thing. Weeks just disappear, but we are going to work on it, you know. But Leanna Care sessions are not that expensive, but all you have to do, it doesn't have to cost you any money. Just talk to someone and that, you know, is not going to shit on you. Tell them how you're feeling. And, you know, if the starting point to this stuff is instead of complaining about a TV show or a movie or manspreading or whatever, just say, I am feeling like I don't have a place. I am feeling besieged. I am feeling overwhelmed. People can validate that. People can show they care about that. The minute you start making fact-based claims, She-Hulk hates men, then someone can disagree. Then someone can say, I don't think so, or there's no evidence of that. And then you feel invalidated because they don't agree. You know, there's an example of, I had a lot of guys go, I felt really attacked by that show, and it surprised me how strong that feeling was. I can't even explain it. That's one message. Someone feeling attacked, all right, totally valid. That show hates men. It deliberately baited the fans. It, you know, this conspiracy of social engineering, that's a very different message, right? So if you need more validation, if you're feeling like you can't take up space, if you've internalized this idea that the world hates you, try that. Try talking about how you felt. I feel feeling word, right? And not I feel that you, or I feel that they. No, that's an I think statement masqueraded as an I feel statement. I feel happy, sad, even I felt attacked is not the same as I feel that you attacked me. See how one is an accusation with I feel tacked on, as opposed to I feel attacked is all right. You're not objectively saying there was an intent there. You're just saying you're feeling that way. Someone can say, okay, I don't want that I wasn't attacking you. Totally different conversation. Give it a try. See how it works. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for people who, you know, can get one-on-one coaching with this sort of thing for their specific things that they need validation on. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Thanks for watching and be well.